Hello, everyone. So, welcome to an introduction to what verb phrases are. Okay. So, the first thing you might ask yourself is, okay, we have the words verb and the word phrase, right? Okay. Now, phrase it's a special use of the word, right? Um, Phrase in French, we're going to use the word groupe. En français, je sais qu'on parle d'un groupe verbal, d'accord? Donc a verb phrase is going to be, really, we're going to. It's not exactly the same thing, but is equivalent to some degree to what is known in French as the groupe verbal. And also, this is a word. This word phrase, as far as in grammar, is something you're going to encounter again. Next semester, you're going to study noun phrases, which is once again le groupe nominal is what we call a noun phrase, right? And also we can have things like le groupe adverbial, which is going to be an adverb phrase, groupe adjectival, which is going to be an adjective phrase, and groupe prépositionnel, which will be a prepositional phrase, right? So phrase is sort of, think of it being sort of a group of words, right? So what is this group of words that represent this verb phrase? How do these words fit together, right? In a verb phrase. So what we notice, and this refers to the document that you have. You can look up to the part of on the verb constructions. You'll find it. There are different what we call constructions. There are different ways to combine verbs in English, right? And the first construction is what we call the simple construction, right? And we've seen this word simple before, right? And in French we have it also. We have le passé simple, présent simple, right? And this means, right, that in, let's say, an affirmative statement, the verb phrase, there is only one word in it. Right? For example, so I could say something like, I ate spinach. J'ai mangé des épinards. D'accord? Or, okay, and here we have a sentence, right? Okay, and in this sentence, right, we have one word here, ate, right? This isolated word. This word is going to be our verb phrase, right? Or we could go farther to say here we have, this is going to be a noun phrase, right? But it's one thing to notice that this is where English grammar is different from French grammar. In French grammar, the verb phrase, according to sort of traditional grammarians, the verb phrase includes the complement of the verb. So that means in French, ate spinach would be ce qui s'appelle le à manger des épinards, si vous voulez, constitue le groupe verbal, d'accord? Donc les compléments qui suivent le verbe sont compris dans le groupe verbal en français selon la grammaire traditionnelle. If we are to look at the verb and its complements, in English we're going to call that the predicate, right? Okay, but here we're looking at the verb phrase, which is only sort of the verb proper, right? Okay, the strictly verbal elements in the sentence or the utterance, if you will. Okay, so the only one we have here is ate. So here we just have a one-word verb phrase, right? Okay, and we call that the simple construction. Now later we're going to talk about sort of meanings that we associate that. But right now we're just going to look at this form a little bit, right? Okay, and what we're going to also study later is that there are two simple constructions. Here we can have this is the past form of the lexical verb ate, right? Okay, eat. I'm sorry. We could also write I eat spinach, right? So that means when we talk about the simple construction, there are two simple constructions. There is the simple present, right? That means we have the present tense and the simple construction, and then we can have the simple past, which means the past tense and still the simple construction. In both cases, we only have one word. Okay, that's the idea. We only have one word. So that's fairly straightforward, we should say, right? That there's really nothing much to say about that. And yet there it goes a little, we might want to, let's say, have, for example, want to ask a question or make a negative statement, right? And that means we're going to have to modify the simple construction, right? And that is when we're going to have to look at how we have other types of verbs that we have to use to, for example, ask questions, right? And, for example, make a negative version of this sentence, right? And to use this, there's a special kind of a thing, and it's called an operator, right? Or let's call it an auxiliary verb, if you will, okay? We're going to need to use an auxiliary verb. I say some people sort of in fancy or sort of modern grammar, I usually use sort of traditional grammar terms. I prefer the term auxiliary verb, it's fine with me. Some people might talk about what an operator I think is a little bit more frightening. It makes us a little bit more scared than we should be. Grammar should be sort of a calm up, exercise. We shouldn't be, panic stricken when we're, trying to see how words fit together. But well, notice here we have a simple construction, which means I call this a lexical verb, right? I said that I said eat is a lexical verb, right? That means that it has meaning, right? It refers to an action, right? Opening your mouth, putting something in it, digesting it, right? That refers to an action, right? But we can add if we want to, let's, for example, make a negative sentence, and I'm going to write N for negative, right? Make a question, interrogation, I, right? Sometimes we want to have like a question tag. I'm going to write a C for that. Or if we want to emphasize, I'm talking about what are known as the nice properties. Negation, interrogation. We're going to write code and emphasis. Code, emphase. Donc en français, on va dire la négation, l'interrogation. Code, emphase, right? Emphasis, right? If we want to do these things, right, we're going to need another verb. And this should be fairly obvious for you because, for example, when you learn, we're kind of going back to sort of the roots when you first learn English in the beginning. You can perhaps remember in your when you were in college, your first English classes, people said, "Oh, you don't say I ate not spinach." Okay? That doesn't work, right? You don't say, for negation, we don't just add not. It doesn't work, right? Okay? We need an auxiliary verb because ate is a lexical verb, right? We need something else. Likewise, let's say we have a question. You don't say, eat you spinach. That doesn't work, right? That doesn't, we need something else. This word eat isn't enough, right? So with the simple tenses, right, the auxiliary verb is going to be do. Okay, that's going to be an auxiliary verb for the simple tenses, right? And we're going to have the simple construction, which is going to, there's not much space on this board, I'm sorry, which is going to be, the simple construction is going to be auxiliary plus what we're going to call the verb stem. Ça veut dire que dans un premier temps, au lieu d'avoir juste un seul verbe dans le groupe verbal, on aura l'auxiliaire do suivi de la forme base verbale de ce verbe lexical. Donc il faut qu'on regarde quelques exemples. Donc si j'ai I ate spinach, the negative version is going to be I. Donc ici, that's if it's I eat spinach. Faisons quelque chose au présent. Donc ça c'est le présent simple, the simple present. I eat spinach. The negative version is going to be I do. D'accord? Donc ici, il fallait l'entremise de cet auxiliaire. D'accord? I do, et ensuite on aura la particule adverbiale de négation, not, oui, and followed by the lexical verb eat. I do not eat spinach, for example. Okay? So that shows us, right, that we need an auxiliary verb for negation, right? Okay, and also what I tried to say earlier is we also use a special what we call a construction, what we call the simple construction, right? That means we use, the simple construction is we use this auxiliary, did, okay? We have did, and then it's followed by the verb stem, eat. That means it's sort of not conjugated. To make that a little bit clearer, the past version of this, right? I ate spinach would be I did not, once again, eat, E-A-T. Donc c'est pour ça que j'insiste sur le fait que ces constructions sont importantes. Vous aurez aussi vu, quand vous étiez en train d'apprendre l'anglais au début, vous aviez peut-être tentation, et parfois je pense que vous faites des lapsus, vous dites « Oh, I didn't eat ». D'accord? Mais là, vous allez vous dire « Ok, donc j'ai vraiment intérêt à connaître vraiment absolument ces constructions, à savoir cette construction simple qui veut que j'ai l'auxiliaire do, qui est toujours, sans exception, jamais suivi de quelque chose autre que la base verbale eat. That's why we're never going to say I didn't eat. It's always I didn't eat, right? And that's true for everything. For example, if I say he eats spinach, right? We have the S here, right? He doesn't eat, never doesn't eats, right? So it's important to note that these, what we call these verbal constructions, right? Okay, are they're fixed, right? And once you really assimilate that, you'll it's not to make too much of a sort of a deal about making mistakes, but you'll more naturally use the right verb form, right? And you'll sort of understand why, right? This is sort of a fixed construction, right? And you can use it in a lot of different ways, but that's always going to be true. Whenever we have, do plus a verb, it's that when we have that lexical verb, here it's eat, it could be run, something like that. It's always going to be that what we call the verb stem, which is another way to call it is le base verbal infinitif sans tout. Okay, and now let's say here we've seen how we use auxiliaries for negation, right? And we can also use this to make questions, interrogation. So I could say, for example, I could say instead of saying you eat spinach, I would say do you eat spinach, or does he eat? Notice once again, this eat is never going to be anything other than the non-conjugated form, right? The infinitif sans tout verb, what we call is the verb stem. Okay, so that's a fixed expression. Do you eat spinach? Does he eat? Did he? See, là tout se passe ici. Do, c'est do qui est conjugué, d'accord? Ok, c'est l'auxiliaire. Ok, c'est le premier auxiliaire, c'est lui qui est conjugué, d'accord? Et qui s'accorde. Qui dit conjugué veut dire qui s'accorde avec le sujet you. Donc il y a accord verbal entre do et you parce que c'est la deuxième personne du singulier. Si je fais par exemple he eats, on voit que le he, troisième personne du singulier, va s'accorder avec le verbe does. Et ce n'est que l'auxiliaire qui s'accorde avec le sujet, d'accord? Parce que on dit opérateur, c'est l'auxiliaire conjugué, mais le verbe principal, lexical, ouais, ne va jamais être conjugué, donc en aucun cas, et je pense que vous avez constaté ça au fur et à mesure. Au départ, c'était peut-être un peu difficile d'assimiler, mais le verbe lexical principal avec cette construction simple n'est jamais conjugué, jamais. D'accord? Même si il s'agit d'une troisième personne du singulier ou d'un passé, hein, ce n'est jamais conjugué. Et ça, mais c'est bon de le comprendre, je pense, en tant que construction pour bien savoir pourquoi. Okay. And now the next thing we have here is what we refer to as code. It's a little bit of a fancy word. We can think of this really as this really applies primarily to what we call question tags. So I could say, for example, he swims, il nage, et en français je peux dire n'est-ce pas? Donc ça c'est pour vérifier que quelque chose est bel et bien compris par l'interlocuteur. I would say he swims, n'est-ce pas? It's going to be, in your head, try to do it. It's going to be, doesn't he? Okay, so notice we don't say he swims, swims he, right? So once again, right, we're going to use the auxiliary, right, that we've encountered in the do in the simple construction, right? We're going to use the auxiliary to do this, right, not the main verb swim. We don't say he swims, swims he, of course not, right? You're used to this now, right? Okay, but seeing as we have the simple construction, swim, we're going to use do, okay, for this one. And once again, does agrees with he, right? I would say third person singular, right? But do is going to be conjugated, right? It's going to have verbal agreement, right? Third person singular, or it could be, it could be in the past tense, right? But there will never be any type of disagreement with the main lexical verb. And then finally, we're going to look at what we call emphasis, right? Okay. And this is kind of similar to what we see with code insofar as it's about sort of it's really about affirming that the person that we're speaking to understands something, right? Okay. Let's say we have a discussion and someone says that they feel wonderful. They say, I don't feel, they say they feel wonderful. And let's say I misunderstood them and say, oh, you don't feel wonderful? And they would say, no, I do, right? I'll say, I do. Okay? So they're not going to say, no, I feel wonderful. No, I do, right? Okay? And that means to emphasize, we're saying, is to really insist on the truth of something, right? In the simple construction, right? Notice the original sentence is, I feel wonderful, you feel wonderful, right? Okay? When we have the simple construction, we're going to use do, right? In this case, it is a form of ellipsis. We're not going to have the verb stem later, but we're going to still use the auxiliary verb do that is a part of this simple construction, right? All right? And it's important also to note that this auxiliary verb agrees with the subject, right? I do, he does. He doesn't feel good. No. He doesn't feel, no, he does, right? Okay? And we're going to insist on that. To really insist on the validity of that assertion, we are going to use the auxiliary, right? And once again, in this case, since we are expressing ourselves using the simple construction, right? We are going to use do, because that is the auxiliary verb in that simple construction, always followed by the verb stem, okay? Ou base verbale nu. I hope that's pretty clear. This was fairly. It might be a little bit quick. You can, I encourage you to watch this again. When we see each other in a little bit more than a week's time, we'll look over this some more. We'll look at other constructions. You will note in the I would say sort of workbook that I made for you. There are other constructions. This is do plus verb stem, the simple construction, right? But there is also have plus verb en, be plus verb ing, and so on, right? So that and also there is also be plus verb en, and these are all sort of conjugated. And once you put all of these constructions, right, that we haven't studied yet together, it's sort of a way of we can combine all of these constructions together. You can get any conceivable verb phrase in English. This is sort of the toolbox, right? Okay, with these four constructions, you can make a huge verb phrase, right? Okay, but this is all you need, right? You just need either the simple construction, be plus verb ing, have plus verb en, or the passive construction, be plus verb en. You put those four constructions together, you can get any verb phrase, right? So, but it's just very important that you obey the way that they're constructed, right? They're very strict. This is the strictest aspect of English grammar. But what's nice about it, there are no exceptions, right? You don't have to think about it. Once you have the simple construction, you have do, did, does, right? Okay, and it is always going to be followed by what we just said, the verb stem. No exceptions. You're never going to say did you felt, never. Did you feels? Never, right? So really make sure, what's good is that you try to get in the habit, in this class is you should really be correcting yourself when you write something, right? You should be able to look, you see, ooh, wait a second, I used do, is that followed by the verb stem? You should be able to verify that yourself. Okay, thank you very much. We will, there will be another brief video on the simple tenses, and we will go from there. Thanks.